Welcome to the Mental Health Multiverse.
We're your hosts,
HB
and LB.
We'll be breaking down some of our favorite movies and TV shows as they relate to mental health, self-healing, and overall wellness, while also breaking stigmas, shedding light on misinterpretations, and helping you understand yourself a little better.
If you're also on a healing journey and enjoy pop culture, stick around. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Mental Health Multiverse. Today, we are talking about Disney Pixar's ENCANTO with our very first guest of season 2. I am so excited to welcome to MHM Cindy, aka the Yummy Geek. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Hello.
So this is HB speaking. I met Cindy online. Surprise, surprise to anyone who has been on this podcast. It basically is someone I met online. But Cindy is a 38-year-old Latina mom of 2 awesome kids, and she's been cosplaying since she met her husband back in 2006. By day, she works for Volume, which is a platform that supports artists and hosts live streams. She's also all about content creation to keep her creative juices flowing. Her passion project, hashtag Food and Cosplay, highlights local Miami restaurants in a unique way, blending her love for food and cosplay. So Cindy, it's such a pleasure to have you here. And in addition to your amazing food and cosplay content and being a mom and being young at heart, which is what I can tell about you based on your content. The reason I invited you onto the show is because you, like the characters in Encanto, are also Colombian, which we're so excited to have your perspective as we talk about this movie. So thank you for being here.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Can you share with the listeners how you got started in cosplay, why you started your food and cosplay project, and what you look forward to in our conversation today?
Okay, so when I met my husband, he was actually the one that introduced cosplay to me. He, pretty much let me know that he would go to conventions with his friends and they would dress up and animate characters from some of their favorite shows. And I thought it was actually, quite interesting, exciting. It was something different. I'm a theater kid. So for me, it was one of those things where I was like, okay, this is kind of a nice way to be another character and get to dress up like another character and not necessarily be on stage, but be with a group of people that pretty much feel the same way. And we did our first convention, I want to say at the end of 2006, maybe beginning of 2007. And I loved it. After that, I went to my first convention. I did a very quick Tifa Lockhart cosplay. Like it was literally put together in like 3 days. And it was so much fun. Back in the day, it was a little bit different. There was no Instagram. I think Facebook was just kind of starting. So it was just more of a fun kind of, place to be with like-minded people. And then fast forward to like 2015, 2016, Instagram became really popular and there were a lot of foodies. Now I love food as something that has been in the center of my life since I was a kid. Like I feel like anything that happens that's important, that's special, that anything, it involves food, right? You get together with your friends, you eat, you drink, you go out, you eat, you go to the movies, you're eating popcorn. So I started following this, I guess, foodie on Instagram, really liked her work. So I opened up the Yummy Geek and I kind of started combining fandom with food. And then I just thought, I got used to seeing the same pictures of food every day. Like sometimes I would scroll and it was like the same. I was like, what can I do to kind of stand out a little bit? That it's not the same, that it's not just somebody going to the restaurant and taking a picture. How can I make this fun or unique to like what I like? And that's when I came up with food and cosplay. So basically I started off more of a Disney bound. I think that was my first one, a Disney bound of Snow White. I went to this local bakery. It was like an apple muffin pie type of pastry. And I highlighted that way. And as the years went by, I kind of started to go to the restaurants themselves and do collaborations. But then COVID happened. So I had to kind of slow down with the whole going to a restaurant and collaborating. And I'm kind of excited that I'm starting it again now. I like to highlight more so mom and pop shops, local places, Latin places, things like that. So I am excited for that.
Hey,
That's
I love
perfect.
that.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
All right. Well, we're going to put you on the spot now. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, can you give us a brief, or as brief as you can make it, synopsis of the movie Encanto?
Oh God. Okay. Encanto, here we go. It is a Colombian family that is blessed with these magical powers. One particular character, Mirabelle, does not have these powers, and so she always kind of feels left out. And not for anything, but the family does kind of put her in a spot to make her feel left out in a lot of ways. And throughout the movie, you realize that things aren't as magical and as perfect as they seem to be. There's a lot of pressure, a lot of miscommunication, because everything on the outside is supposed to look magnificent and beautiful and just wow, these people are so lucky, but no one really understands the amount of pressure that all of these characters are under. And Maribel, because she's the outsider, starts to see things a little bit differently than anybody else can see, since they're so into their own little, I guess, trapped in their own little powers. I know everybody thinks the grandma is the villain, and yeah, she kind of is, but you also get a little bit of her storyline towards the end. And I feel, at least for me, you kind of start to understand why she is the way that she is and why she has carried her family the way that she has carried them, only to realize that the magic that they got wasn't so much the powers, but it was the ability to have a family, to have a second chance in life, because that was taken from her when her husband was killed with when she had her three little babies. So I think that's somewhat of a synopsis.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a lot that goes in there, but that's pretty much the gist of the story.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. That's like a really good synopsis. There are so many different layers, but that's what we're exploring today. If you haven't seen the movie already, go check it out, even though we just kind of talked about it now and gave everything away, but that's
From
fine.
beginning to end, yes.
Yeah. So the movie came out November 24th in 2021, which feels like not that long ago, but also forever ago. But anyway, so I saw it on Disney Plus and I cried, obviously. But yeah, what about you guys? What were your kind of personal or first experiences with the movie?
I saw it for the first time. It was on Disney Plus. I remember it being advertised one way, and I was not expecting it to be what it actually turned out to be. And I saw
Mm.
it with my daughter at the time. I was like, oh, I'm so excited. It's a Colombian. For me, it was the first time that I really felt like, oh, look at this representation. It's a Colombian family. It's taking place in Colombia. It's showing different kinds of people. So I was really excited for it. I remember I made her some breakfast. I ordered some Colombian food from a local Colombian bakery. She dressed up. I dressed up. We were sitting down watching it, and I cried as well because I was not expecting it to hit as hard as it did. Despite the fact that, again, I saw it as like representation, I didn't think it was going to be as deep as it was. The music was phenomenal. So, of course, excuse me, my daughter enjoyed it. But it it's a really, really deep movie, and I think it really does hit on mental health in so many different levels. So for me, it was like, I think for a good maybe 2, 3 months, it just kept replaying. Like there were so many different things about it that I kept thinking, oh my God, this I can relate to this, or I remember feeling this exact way. Or so yeah, it was it had a huge impact, I guess is what I'm
Mm.
trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can imagine, because like it had a huge impact on me as well. And so like for it to be like more of a representation for you, it was probably like you probably felt so seen, you know? Like my first experience watching it, I also didn't really know what I was getting into. Like they advertise it as this celebration of family is sort of what it seemed to be advertised of. And what we did not know is that we were getting generational trauma, and that is what they like break the
Exactly.
cycle. Yeah.
Yeah.
The way that it resonated for me, and I am not Colombian, I am mixed. I am 1/4 black and then a bunch of white people stuff. But I saw myself so much in Luisa, the way first of all, older sister,
Mm.
second of all, older sister who protects the younger siblings from everything, and you kept saying pressure earlier, and I was just thinking of Luisa like, "Pressure like just that whole
Yes,
song.
that whole song.
When that I this is what I wasn't expecting, right? I saw her and I was literally like, "That is me. She is me." And obviously, like, for those of you who can see me, I'm wearing the top half of my Louisa cosplay shirt with my MHM bra underneath. But anyway,
We have dubbed it now as the MHM bra. I love that.
but I saw Louisa, and it was before I knew anything about her, I was like, she is me, because she's like a larger woman, she's strong, and I just felt so immediately represented. I felt like I looked like her. I was like, she's got the curly hair, she's got the darker skin, she's like whatever, whatever. And I then she sang Surface Pressure,
Oh,
and I started bawling. I wasn't expecting it. I had no idea. And I was just crying and crying and crying. And I was like, what is this song episode? So, because it's like, I just resonated with it so much. And then the movie had me in a chokehold. I was like, okay, well, here we go. So that was my first experience watching it.
Yeah.
And for those of you who have listened to previous episodes of season 2 already and are wanting to hear about what the little boy I babysit thinks, because we haven't done that for the past couple of episodes.
A segment
The-
of
This is little LB, so the little boy I babysit. He rated the movie. He said he would have given it that if I would have asked him when it first came out, he would have given it a 4.5 or 5 out of 5, like top rating when he first watched it. But he changed it to a 4 now because he's used to it. And he used to love the soundtrack, but now he's sick of it with how much everybody plays it at their birthday parties. So that is little LB's answer to his rating of Encanto.
Nice. I agree with my little LB. So Cindy, as you mentioned, this movie has a lot of moving parts, a lot of different layers, but a big theme is around family, and specifically like intergenerational trauma. So I was wondering, like, what it meant to have that represented in a Pixar movie of all things.
oh, 100%. You mentioned Surface Pressure. I feel like I identify with the three sisters, with Mirabel, Bella, and Luisa. I identify with all three of them. And the reason I say that is I remember listening to Surface Pressure the first time. And I know everybody went crazy with, we don't talk about Bruno and all that stuff, but the lyrics to Surface Pressure, I think, are one of the reasons why I cried in the movie. There's a line that says, "Give it to your sister and never wonder if the same pressure would have pulled you under." That I mean, even now, like, I'm talking about it, I'm like, oh, that kills me, because I mean, I love my family, and I feel like part of the movie is that you really do love your family and they love each other. It's just this lack of accountability, this lack of communication, of having to pretend that everything is okay when things are not. And that is a very generational thing. I know it happens a lot, not just in Colombian families, but in all families, in all different cultures. And that resonated with me because I always felt, I have older siblings, where it got to the point where myself and maybe sometimes my younger brother were sort of like, you guys have to be the perfect ones because so many mistakes were already made. So now it's up to you to do this, and it's up to you to do that, and it's up to you to kind of, I guess, make everything okay. And that's a lot to put on somebody. I feel like that creates a lot of not just pressure, but a lot of anxiety, a lot of doubt, a lot of it. Is this going to be enough this time around, or should I be doing more? Because if I'm not doing more, then I'm not really taking care of this family properly, or I'm not representing my family properly. So yeah, that's why I feel like the movie really hit some deep issues that maybe weren't brought up before, but most definitely I can say, at least for me, that's kind of like how it felt. Same thing with Isabella, with the whole, you have to be perfect, you have to be perfect. At some point in my life, I felt like my parents were putting me on a pedestal type of thing. And I felt like I couldn't make any mistakes. Like, I just had to be the perfect daughter who got perfect grades in school, and I have to stay home, and I have to get a job, and I have to help the family, and I have to. So it's a lot of things that I guess, resonated with me when it came to each and every one of those characters. And then being like Mirabel, sometimes feeling kind of left out, or feeling a little bit different from everybody else, feeling like everyone is sort of in this little bubble, and you're sort of the outsider kind of looking in, and then you don't always feel part of that. So Yeah.
Yeah.
I can really go deep on that, but I'd rather save some stuff for my therapist. So.
Well, it reminds me of LB's story too, which has been told on this podcast a lot, but just about how your parents put a lot of pressure on you to be like the one who not only had to be perfect, but also got everything done while your little brother got to get away with whatever he wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. And Cindy, I do like how you touched on a lot of different dynamics that are shown within the movie, because even though the movie kind of displays as each individual character as one of like a portrayal of a dynamic, like, you know, Bruno is the scapegoat and Isabella is the golden child and Mirabella is the black sheep, more often than not one person within a family dynamic can take on like multiple roles, or those roles can shift and change as, you know, you get older and things like that. So thank you for sharing your experience with us. And I feel like, based on what you said, this movie is for you what Turning Red was for me. We just recorded that episode last week, and I come from a Chinese Filipino background, and I'm like more closely related to the Chinese side of me, I guess. And so that movie, just like every scene punched me right in the gut in, like, you know, a good way overall, just because it's it's validating, and it sucks because it reminds you of all of this stuff, but at the end of the day you get this not only like cultural representation, but also this representation of a dynamic that isn't talked about a lot because it's been so taboo for so long. It's been very like hush hush, kind of like Abuela, about like, no, the magic's not dying, even though it clearly is. And we can't let anyone know that we're struggling because we have to be the strong ones. We're the only ones holding the community and the family together. And if we fall apart, everything falls apart. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. So yeah. Yeah. This movie, I love it. I love the music. The lyrics are just like spot on in every way. I love Surface Pressure. I related a lot to Isabella's song just because she's talking about how everything she does to be perfect isn't about her. It's for the betterment of the family, right? She's like, I didn't even want to marry Mariano because I was just doing it because it was going to make everyone else happy and it was going to make the magic stronger and the family stronger. And that's what we're here to do, right? And yeah, her song, there were a couple lyrics that stood out to me. What could I do if I just knew it didn't need to be perfect? It just needed to be, and they'd let me be. And then I'm so sick of pretty. I want something new, don't you? And I'm like, ah, yes, yes.
I love
There's
that.
just, yeah, there are a bunch of different lyrics that just hit so hard. But speaking of family dynamics, one key part of the movie is that everyone gets like a gift from the miracle, the magic, the encanto. Heather wrote this question and I'm going to steal it. Sorry, Heather. Which which magical family gift would you want? It's a very good question.
Oh my God, what's his name? Antonio?
The little boy.
Yes, the ability to communicate with the animals. I
Yeah.
think that is probably the least problematic in a way. And I mean, you can still be an introvert. You can still, like, you don't need to. I feel like it's not really servicing other people. It's more like for you. And I just prefer sometimes animals to people anyway. but when I saw that power, I was like, oh yeah, that I would want that. I would want that. I wouldn't want to make everything beautiful and perfect because life isn't always beautiful and perfect. I wouldn't want the ability to have this like strength because I feel like at some point, like with Lisa, the pressure really does get to her. Like that's all she's there for, is to make sure that nothing falls apart, that everything is nice and, good, and it's like this, almost like this foundation. If she crumbles, everything crumbles with her. And I just feel like with Antonio, with the animal, I mean, maybe it's because they didn't focus so much on it, but I just feel like it would just be the fun one,
Yeah.
the more
Yeah.
light-hearted one. The I would love that ability to talk to the
No, I agree. Now that you said it, I can't think of a way that the family would have used it not, I don't want to say selfishly as if like they were abusing anyone else's gifts, but it's just fun. It's just very representative of like a kid being a kid, right? Antonio just gets to be a kid and talk to animals. Like, how cool is that? There's no pressure to, I don't know. Yeah, there's just,
It's just
yeah,
fun.
it's just fun.
Who doesn't want to talk to their pets or, animals on the street, or if they need help, now you can really communicate with them. And it's just, I don't know. I thought it was the maybe the most innocent kind of gift, but that would be what I would choose for sure.
Mm.
Well, I have so much to say about Antonio because I feel like there's one character in the movies that we've been talking about where like anytime they do anything, I cry, and that was Antonio in this movie. It's like anytime he did or said anything, like when he reaches out to Mirabelle because he doesn't want to walk down the like aisle alone to his door, and he's like, I can't do it without you. Immediate tears. And then when he gives Bruno the little stuffy that Mirabelle made him, and Bruno's
Oh,
and he says, it's for the nerves. And I just like, again, just immediate tears, immediate tears. But anyway, so I love Antonio. I will say that. I think I would still choose Luisa though. Like I still would want to be super strong. It's just like this fantasy I have to just be able to, like effortlessly lift a car over my head, you know? I think
I
it's the
mean,
She-Hulk.
I was
It's
gonna
like
say that's
yeah.
very on brand for you, considering
Yeah.
She-Hulk is your favorite superhero. So,
Yeah, yeah. I think I would just it would be nice to just bloop anything, just effortlessly like yep, yep. Yeah, it would be fun. I often think about like being indestructible would be so fun because like there's so many times when I'm crossing the street in New York where like a car tries to run me over and I just like so badly wish that I could just like stand there and destroy their car, you know? Like just like yeah.
that's such a New Yorker thing to say.
It sure is. It sure is. Or like when people are being annoying on the subway, like just to be able to like punch someone in the face, and just like without fear that I'm not strong enough or something. Be great. Be
I
great.
like that. That sounds good too. I like
Mm.
that for those
Mhm.
for those exact same reasons.
Yeah. It's mostly like people bothering me that I want to be like, okay, I'm gonna and if we don't choose violence, it will just be so that I can throw them somewhere else. Like away from me, please. Thank you. Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
What about you?
I don't know. We were
That's why
talking.
you asked.
You know me. I can never
You wanted to
answer
get that pressure
questions.
off of her. She's like, "Oh, let me ask the question.
You
Answer
guys
it."
saw right through me. Gosh darn it. No, I was just like going through all the different people. So, for anyone who isn't aware or forgot, Abuela doesn't have a gift, but she got the miracle. And then her three babies, there's Peppa who can control the weather. Also, there's a great song at the beginning that explains all of this, but I'm going to do it here, but not sing it. Anyway, Bruno can see
Please
the
just sing the song.
we don't have time for that. Bruno can see the future. Julieta, which is Mirabelle's mom, can heal people's ailments with food, which I really love.
I like that too. I was gonna say that would probably be like neck and neck with Antonio. I completely forgot. I just saw the movie and I completely forgot that she cures
Yep.
people.
Well, it's
Ugh.
also interesting because they like don't really go into it that much. Like it's just kind of like this passing thing.
Yeah.
But I also have some thoughts about her role within the family, but we can get to that in a second. And then from there, we have Dolores, who I believe is whose daughter is she? Peppa's?
Peppa, I
Oh,
believe
okay.
it. Yeah.
So she
Right.
can hear things really well, which I definitely would not want. I'm already too sensitive to noises. I would not want to have like super hearing. Then there's Camilo. He can shapeshift into people, which is like cool, but also kind of weird, not gonna lie.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't know if I would want someone in my family who could shapeshift to look like me. I
No,
don't
me
know.
either.
I don't know. It's just kind of weird. And then Luisa is super strong. Isabella can grow flowers or plants, as we come to find out, not just flowers, but that's always what's been expected of her. And Mirabelle doesn't have a gift, and then Antonio can talk to animals. Out of all of those, I think I would want to heal people with food. Yeah. That's like real. That's just really cool. Like, oh, you're sick?
Mhm.
Like, and I think it's so fitting because obviously she's a very caring and doting mother. So, you know, I'm just thinking of like when a kid is sick and
That would be so wonderful.
Yeah, and their parents like make them soup and
And then
just
immediately it heals. Oh my God. I think that's every parent's dream. So
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so in addition to those powers, each of them use their powers for the betterment not just of the family, but for the community, which is what Abuela has kind of like put on them. Everything is about how to help others and protect others. What I find interesting about Julieta's role is that she is kind of bridging. I don't know if like bridging the gap is the right word I want to say, but she's kind of bridging the generation between Abuela and Mirabel because they are very similar, right? Neither of them have this magical gift, but the house responds to them primarily. And I think because of that, they are very similar and they kind of, I don't want to say they butt heads a lot, but Mirabelle tries really hard to gain her grandmother's approval because she thinks the only way to do that is to have a gift and to be special and to help the family. And so Mirabelle kind of goes above and beyond to do that, but obviously it's never enough. And at one point, Abuela is like, the best thing you can do for this family is to like not try so hard. She doesn't say it in those exact words, but that's basically what she means. But I think it's interesting, and this is the point I keep trying to make and I keep forgetting, is that Julieta kind of, I don't want to say plays both sides in like a manipulative kind of way, but she'll like defend Mirabelle to Abuela, but then also kind of defend Abuela to Mirabelle, if that makes sense. And so I think that's a
Yeah.
really interesting position that she's in, where she can see that her own mother is hurting her daughter and that her daughter is trying so hard to prove something to her mom. And she tries so hard to tell Mirabelle, like, I love you, you are special, you are enough, you have nothing to prove, right? But there's like not much more she can do about that. And so, Cindy, since you're a mom, if I can ask what your perspective on that is and like how, I don't know, like, can you relate to the way she navigated that? Would you do anything differently? I just think it's a really interesting and complicated, nuanced
it is
place to be.
it is very complicated. I think she is trying her best to kind of support Mirabelle and make her feel like, hey, you don't need the powers. You're always going to be special to me and you're always going to be special to this family. But like you said, that being said, she also stands behind grandma because I feel like Abuela is the, at least what they feel, the glue that keeps the family together. And so no matter what their opinions, at the end of the day, they're going to respect that. For me as a mom, I would not. I don't think I would do that. I am going to go with how my daughter feels, with what my daughter is experiencing, because I wouldn't want her to feel that as her mom, I am not 100% supporting her. It's one thing to respect that part of the family, but at the end of the day, I mean, I guess that's the difference, and that's the whole breaking the generational trauma is that at the end of the day, this is my unit, this is my new unit, and I'm going to protect this new unit. It doesn't mean that I don't care about, the unit that I was in before, but it's just this is mine to take care of, to protect, to guide, to, make feel like I am the person that she can come to and not have to worry about me saying, oh, well, you should have listened to. No, that's so I personally don't really like that, but
Mhm.
it is a very, very common thing. And, again, I don't want to speak for all Hispanics or all Colombians, but it is a very common thing in the culture of, listening to your elders, even if they are wrong for whatever reason, it is still up to you to be the one to apologize, or it's still up to you to be the one to take accountability, even if you haven't done anything wrong. So that's why
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't really like the way that that's handled. I personally, as a parent, I wouldn't do that as a mom. I
Mm.
would go, to protect my daughter's well being, her mental health, her emotional health, her stability. That to me is more important than having to worry about, oh, am I going to hurt abuela's feelings? Sorry, abuela, you've grown. You've
You're grown.
you've
Yeah.
had your life. You've had this. I'm not about to then continue the cycle with my kid. I definitely wouldn't do that.
I don't know why
Yeah.
your response made me so emotional. Probably because my mother didn't do that for me, but I'm like,
Sorry.
Aw.
I love that. No,
Mhm.
thank you for answering that. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate your honesty too, because I come from a very similar family expectation, societal expectation, cultural expectation of just, your parents, your elders are always right, even when they're wrong. And that's just the way they are or something, and that's really annoying. So yeah, I just appreciate hearing someone who gets it and who's
Invalidate that invalidates your feelings, that
Yeah.
that it's
Yeah.
almost like you have to everything is about taking their feelings into account and taking but then at the end of the day, it's like, well, what are you doing to protect your own feelings? What are you doing to protect your own mental health? Because then that's why that cycle continues, is because you then carry that onto, your kids, and then they'll carry that onto theirs. So yeah.
you're 100% right. I mean, that's exactly what breaking the cycle is. It's recognizing when the ways that either the family has shown up or the expectations placed within the family are harmful or toxic or dysfunctional or no longer serve, right? Because the whole thing started with Abuela wanting to protect her family. And that was fantastic and amazing. And it served her for a time. And then it no longer was, because it just wasn't serving them in the same way because they weren't in that position anymore. And we had a whole conversation about like descendant of immigrants in our elemental episode. So if you didn't listen to that, check that out. But we talk a lot about like the guilt that can come from having a quote unquote easier life when your elders like struggled so much and things like that. And I think that's where a lot of like I don't want to say where a lot of Abuela's like anger comes from, but I do think a lot of her survival mode. She's constantly acting and reacting out of survival mode.
That's exactly what it is. That's why I say I don't see her as being a full villain. I've seen so many memes of like,
Yeah.
she's the evil one. But I don't think that really stems from her being a horrible person or being an evil person. I just think, and look, I literally just saw that scene and it made me cry when she's holding on to the three babies and her husband gets killed right in front of her and she just breaks down and falls. And it's within that pain and all that love that she had for him, that loss, that if you see, that's pretty much what creates that kind of, it's like a wave that is what you kind of interpret as that's what destroys these men and then gives her that miracle, that sort of second chance. So I do feel her pain in that sense because it's a huge loss. And at that point, like she says, I wanted to hold on to that for so long that instead of appreciating that miracle at that moment, she saw it as like, well, this is my chance to make sure that none of this ever happens again and that everyone is protected. And that includes everyone around me. And, she didn't realize how much the pressure she was putting on herself to make sure that everything was perfect was pretty much trickling down to everybody else.
Yeah. And
So,
especially because the narrative that she kept passing down, because she says it in the song, like, we have to earn the miracle that was given to us. And so everything that she and the family does is to basically earn that, but they already got it,
they got
like they
She
didn't.
got it when her babies lived. She got
Yeah.
it when she
Mhm.
was able to create a home for her three kids. She lost her husband in the process, but that was a chance of like she could have lost them as well, and she didn't. They were there.
Yeah.
And so, in that, of course, they gain all these powers and all this stuff, but she lost that. She made it more about the powers and this magic and like what everyone can do for everyone else and forget how it's going to make how it's going to make them feel or anything like that. So that's why again I don't think she's 100% the villain. I just think she needed help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's a good representation of how you can understand why someone is the way they is and not excuse their behavior. But,
Yes.
and then especially with family, like you can call them in lovingly and just be like, hey, you're kind of being a dick.
Yeah, no, exactly. She needed and I think that's why Mirabel didn't get powers, is because she was going to be the one to, again, I don't think anybody else would have noticed what was happening because they were so into their own little, world and their magic and their this. She was the only one as an outsider that was seeing how things were actually going. So I think that's the reason why she was able to kind of bring everyone together and pretty much save the family.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah. And it also speaks to how no matter how hard you try to control something, you cannot control the outcome. And no matter how hard you try to prevent something from happening, like, you never know. There are some things you can't control. And protecting your family is obviously number one priority, but like, there's a point where you have to let them go and let them be their own and let them be free. And that's something that I see in the conversation we're having right now and also in the movies, that Abuela never lets them be free. She's got a hold on them the whole
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And that hold is in perfectionism. And she sees Mirabelle, who is coming to each person with a gift and sort of allowing them to see what is like. Mirabelle is the vehicle that Louisa sort of was able to say, I'm under too much pressure. She had never expressed it before. And finally was like, this is what I'm going through. And Mirabelle was the vehicle that got Isabella to see that she could create a cactus, right? And finally say, like, I'm sick of being perfect. And the grandma saw that as something negative, right? She
Thought it was like
saw
disruptive.
yeah, she thought Mirabelle was doing something wrong when all she was doing was allowing them to discover their authentic selves and help them be free, you know?
Yeah. I think another great lesson I love from this movie is that self-sacrifice isn't a virtue. I know as like a parent that can be a little bit difficult, but you have to take care of yourself in order to take care of your kids, you know?
No, it's true. It's true. Like it's easier said than done, but it's 100% true. How am I supposed to take care of another human being if I can't even handle myself? If I can't take care of myself? Like if I'm not okay, then nobody else is going to be okay. You can only pretend for so long. You can only, you know, at some point the pressure is going to get to you and at some point you're going to break and then everyone else is going to break with you because you held it on for too long.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's very important that people know that you really do, and it's not, you're right, it's not a selfish thing to say. Helping other people, helping whatever is wonderful, but in order to do that, you need to be able to do that for yourself as well, because you're only human. You're gonna crack at some point.
Right.
It's the
Right. Like
same thing of putting the oxygen on yourself before you like it's the greatest analogy ever because it's what is said every time you're on an airplane. Put the oxygen mask on yourself and then on someone else, like always.
Yeah. How are
yeah.
you gonna help someone else if you can't breathe? And that point, you're sacrificing both of you. You know,
Uh-huh.
so
Mhm.
yeah, that's 100%. Yeah, that's a good analogy. Great. That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a really good point. I'm losing my thought. Hang on. Oh, thank you. Here we go. Um
we're back on.
like a truck. I think just like Abuela does for the on herself and with the family, we can put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be there for other people, right? Like Luisa thinks she has to be the strong one because if she isn't, everything is going to crumble. Isabella thinks if she's not the perfect one, then everything is, going to turn into chaos or something. Each individual person feels like they're the only one holding everything together. And then we find out that that's not exactly true. In the end, Luisa is like, I am strong and I can cry and I'm allowed to rest and donkeys can serve me drinks. And what I really like too is how the community at the end helps them rebuild. Right. I
Yeah,
think
Oh,
I love that.
it's so beautiful.
gets me every time.
Yeah.
Even just
I love
thinking about it, I'm about to cry again.
That's one of my favorite songs. That last song when they're all getting together and they're like, we don't have magic, but we can, help. That's beautiful.
Yep.
Yeah. And
That's
Yep.
beautiful.
I love that lesson too of like you can be the helper and still ask for help, right? And that the people you are helping, hopefully, most likely, are not taking advantage of your services and are always willing to like reciprocate when you need it. Because I relationships, especially, I'm thinking of romantic relationships or even just friendships, it's not always 50-50, right? It's like 60-40, sometimes it's 90-10. And it's always nice when you have that mutual trust and understanding in a person where you can show up for them when they need it and they can show up for you. And I think like what that's like the nucleus of what community means. Yeah. That last song at the end of the movie just makes me cry.
Wait, is there a direct translation of Encanto?
There should be. Hold on, now I need to look this up, but I'm guessing it could be.
So like in this first song that they sing, I think that, or it's somewhere in the movie, Abuela says, Encanto is a wonderful place for us to live. But
I
I
think
don't know
there are a
the,
couple of instances where they say Encanto, comma, a wonder. I think they sing it
Mm.
too because I was watching the sing along version and I think it's in the lyrics somewhere. Heather, don't laugh at me. I
I
was
don't know why
singing
that's so, is
along,
that
okay? I was singing along.
That's how you get the lyrics right. That's how you know? I understand.
Thank you. Thank you.
I love it. I love it.
When you say a direct translation to Encanto, what do you mean? Because I feel like I
Just like, what does Encanto mean, basically?
oh, ha, ha. So yeah, see, I definitely did not that did not compute. So for us, un encanto is like a like magic, like spell, like in a lot of ways at least we say it in our family, it's or sometimes we say it's un encanto, like it's been a pleasure, or it's been, there's different translations, not
Okay.
just I wouldn't just say in Colombia, but just in the Latin, Hispanic. It's all very different. But at least in my household, un encanto would be, yeah, some sort of magic, some sort of spell. It could also mean like it's been a pleasure, or it's something very positive, something very light, something very, so but for me a direct translation would probably be magic, spell, that's where it falls under.
Okay.
Mm,
Awesome.
gotcha. Nice.
Thank you for that. I didn't know. So I
Yeah.
guess wonder would also work for that.
Yes. Yeah, sort of like that.
So something I really liked about the representation of the movie is that, of course, it was representing a culture, but it was like diverse across the full spectrum of the culture, which I liked.
Mm,
Like there were all different skin tones, all different hair textures, all different body types. Like I
hair
really
color.
enjoyed hair color. Yeah, I just really enjoyed that we got like a full spectrum rather than just depicting like, because sometimes when you see family depicted, it is just they all kind of look the same, right? But they gave I thought that the animation of this film gave us a really beautiful look into a diverse family. I just love Luisa's shape. I loved I can't remember Peppa's husband's name, but also he
Felix.
was yeah, Felix. Yeah.
I love
And
Felix so much. I love when the beginning of We Don't Talk About Bruno and Peppa's just talking about how they got married in a hurricane. And Felix is like, but it was a great day. It was a
Yeah.
joyous day. I had so much fun. But yes, a hurricane.
Positivity and all of
Yeah.
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
No,
just
I
love
just
too
like
how everyone's like a perfect partner. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, they do have perfect partners and I think it's a great representation of like love and like still being able to have love even though there are other things going like even though there is that intergenerational trauma, right? Like these all of her children were still able to find love and they have really great partners and the magic lives on, and so I think I really liked all of that.
I also liked the whole I always forget his name. Julieta's husband, Mirabel's dad. Do you guys remember his name? He has like
No.
three or is it Julio? He has like three or four lines, but it's always one of those like I feel like he understands Mirabel in the sense that he's like, we married into this family, so we know we're not the special ones. The people we married are. So I totally get what it's like to be normal, regular, nothing, and I feel like Mirabel understands him in that sense as well. And if you think about
Yeah.
it, he's always constantly kind of getting hurt. So I think that's why he made a perfect match with her as well. And then you mentioned with Felix, Felix keeps Peppa grounded, which is what she needs in order to be able to control the weather. Because if not, it would always be a hurricane. So I feel like he's her balance. So I kind of like that these, I guess what you would call non-unique individuals met these extremely magical people, and yet they brought something to the table. They keep them in this perfect balance. So I do love that. And that's what I love about this too, is that I remember when I first heard that the movie was, being made, I was like, is this going to be like a Colombian princess or some, what is this going to be like? I was just happy that it was like Colombia because I was like, oh my God, Colombia and Disney. Wow. That's wow. That's huge. And when again, the previews don't really give too much. Like you said, it just looks like it's a family that has magical powers in Colombia. And I'm like, oh, it's going to be beautiful. And I do love that. I love that they really captured how beautiful Colombia is, because I know there's a lot of negativity when it comes to Colombia. And a lot of people think there's things that come to mind, unfortunately, when people hear, oh, the country of Colombia. And it's just so beautiful. There's so much to it. And like you mentioned, Heather, the whole diversity of the family. It's not just the family, it's the people. I love that they show the diversity of that country. And it's like that in other, Latin countries as well. There's so much diversity. It's not just one size fits all type of situation. It's just so much to it. And I appreciate that. And I love that. It's one of those movies that I love. And I'm so happy that I got to share that with my kid. Once my son gets a little older, I'll probably be, putting it on for him as well. But I definitely felt represented. And I love that after that, like if you've noticed the movies that have come out after, Pixar movies that have come out, like Elemental, like you mentioned, Turning Red,
Yeah.
Mhm.
we love them. My daughter loved that movie. And even though obviously it's different cultures, we still kind of experience the same things. And there was a lot about that as well that it reminded me of Encanto too. That sort of pressure, that sort of like, no, you have to behave a certain way. You have to be this way. You have to be, this is the way it's got to be. Because if not, you're going to bring shame to your family. You're going to,
Mm-hmm.
it's all, correlated. It's very similar. Despite our differences, there's so many similarities, so many things that we
Mhm.
go through. And most of the time, we don't really hear about it because, like you said, it's a very taboo subject and nobody really wants to say it. So I'm kind of glad that a movie like Encanto kind of brought that out. And I remember seeing TikToks and Instagram, stories and all stuff of people just saying, oh my God, I feel seen. Oh my God, you don't necessarily have to be Colombian. You just felt seen because that was a similar dynamic in your own family or the way that you grew up. So I love that about that. It was definitely, I don't want to say a slap in the face because it was a negative, but it was one of those things where you're like, whoa, I'm seeing this now for the very first time. This is my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I think there's a sort of cultural shift that's happening. And I think partially it is due to so many people speaking up on social media and the people who are in charge in media and the people and just like our sort of generation. But I think there's a cultural shift happening of breaking the cycle and of talking about these things more and of noting mental health and noting trauma and noting all these things and normalizing it almost, or not normalizing the fact that it happens, but like normalizing talking about it when it does, right? And I think that we are slowly breaking the stigma around all of this. And I love that Disney and Pixar are picking up on that and are helping tell stories about it too, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of, what were some of your guys' favorite quotes from the movie or song? Because I think a
Oh,
lot of our favorite lyrics or song, a lot of our favorite quotes come from songs.
they do.
yeah, for me it is "And I glow because I know what my worth is," also in Surface Pressure, and literally Luis is, like, standing, flexing, showing off her back, like, oh, that just it got me because it was like, "I glow because I know what my worth is." I want it on a T-shirt, I want it on everything I own. When we get MHM merch, that is the first quote that is going on the MHM merch. I love Surface Pressure, and my favorite character, I think, obvious, Luisa. The it everything about her and that song, just I love it. I love it so much. Like I said, made me cry. I also have a fun fact and note about Luisa that I want to share, and I'm pretty sure that I've talked about this before, but I think it's worth noting specifically in this episode because it's about Luisa. But Disney thought that the other characters would be more popular, like other than Mirabelle, Disney thought that Isabella would be the most like cherished by children, like that thought that kids would love her the most. So they pushed a bunch of dolls and toys and marketed Isabella really heavily, but the
Yeah.
kids actually wanted Luisa. And they didn't have enough Luisa products to go around because they were really pushing Isabella, and kids were like, "No, we wanna be Luisa. We want more Luisa stuff." So Disney had to, like, distribute and like reconfigure their merchandising because they had planned that Isabel would sell more than Louisa would. And
Mhm.
I'm just really proud of kids these days for that.
I mean, both
Um,
characters are very strong characters, but I'm with you in the sense that at least song wise, and don't get me wrong, I'm not Lisa, Isabella's song is also very powerful, but there's just something about the lyrics to Luisa's song that really resonate. And I feel like you don't even have to be the older child because I'm not the oldest. I don't want to say that I'm the middle. There's 6 of us. So I guess I kind of like sort of, yeah, in the middle. But it's just those lyrics always get to me. So I think I had that song, Surface Pressure, on repeat in the
Same.
car.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would just
Mhm.
like, oh, I'm going to the store, and I would just go to the store so I can put on that song and have it, and then wait in the parking lot and just repeat it and repeat it, and then put it
Yep.
loud again because I felt it. I felt, and I'm sure my siblings, more than likely, because I've talked to my sister about this as well, we have felt it too. Like I talk about, like, oh, me, I felt this way, but at the end of the day, they had their own little perspective to things as well, and they
Mm-hmm.
also, at least with her, she also felt certain things about these characters that's like, oh yeah, this is definitely deeply rooted into our, the way that we grew up, the way that we were brought up, and all of that. So yeah, Surface Pressure definitely. Everybody loves. We don't talk about Bruno, but Mirabelle's song in the beginning, "Waiting for a Miracle," that song makes me
Mhm.
cry too. That song makes me feel like I mean, she literally says like everything that they can do. She's like, I can't heal what's broken. I can't, control the weather. I can't do any of this, but it feels really horrible. I feel like being in that position where everybody's doing all these amazing things and she feels like I'm just not enough. I am not enough. There's nothing I can possibly do. So please, I am waiting for something that'll help me be at that level that all these people are in, these amazing, magnificent people. That whole keeping her out of the picture, I was like, what the hell is this? I felt
Mhm.
so offended when they keep her out of the picture. I was like, what? Because at the end of the day, she's still just a kid as well. She's not as young as Antonio, but she is the youngest,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so that was very like, ouch, like it was a stab in the heart.
Yeah.
Seeing
I
her
don't
walk.
think I noticed that the first time I watched it, but I made note of it this time. I was like, they didn't wait for her for the picture.
No, they didn't care. It was all, and that's why I'm like, that's so mean because they're all celebrating. Oh my God, Antonio has this gift. Look at oh, this family is so wonderful. Look at us. Like, finally, right? Because they had waited all these years because with Maribel's reveal being that she got no powers, it was almost like it brought shame to the family. It was almost like, man, we are counting. That's why Antonio feels so much pressure too. That's why he's like, I don't want to do this by myself because now he's scared, and
Mhm.
the fact that he gets his powers and they all celebrate, and then Mirabel's just like, oh, hey, I guess I'm part of this family too. That was very painful to watch. That was extremely painful. So her song, pretty much, it's almost like a cry out, not just to getting a miracle, but it's almost like crying out to her family. Like, hey, I'm here. I am still here. I am still a part of this. I
Mm-hmm.
love all of
Yeah.
you. Like, am I not enough for you guys? Yeah, that was a very painful moment.
Ugh. Yeah, her lyric is I would heal what's broken, show this family something new. And I never really clocked that line before until I watched the movie again. And I was like, wow, and that's exactly what she got. She
Yeah.
healed because even Abuela's like, we're broken.
Yeah.
And Mirabelle says, it's not so broken that we can't fix it together.
Mm.
So she helped heal what was broken and she showed the family something new. She showed Luisa how to be strong and sensitive. She showed Isabella how to just be herself and to just be, right? And I think that's something a lot of recovering perfectionists have a hard time with is just being themselves, being genuine and being authentic and people pleasers especially because a lot of it is like, okay, who do you need me to be to make you happy, right? And then
Yeah.
I feel comfortable because you're happy, and if you're happy, nothing bad can happen to me. You know, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, all of the songs are catchy, but if I had to like rank them, we don't talk about Bruno as like at the not the bottom of my list, but it's not like yes, it's
Yeah.
catchy and it's a fun song, but like Surface Pressure, Waiting on a Miracle, and what else can I do? Just like and also I don't want to butcher the pronunciation because I don't speak Spanish, but the song about the two caterpillars, the two butterflies,
Oh,
that
that
song
song.
tears my heart apart out of my
Mm.
chest and just like stomps on it in the best way possible. Ugh.
So, so that to me is a very, for me, from my perspective of it, is very letting your child grow, letting this, little perfect miracle fly. They're gonna have to fly eventually, right? It made me think a lot about my daughter. And I remember listening to it the first couple of times, always being emotional about it and everything. Now that I have my son and I rewatched, because I hadn't rewatched the movie in its completion for a while, my daughter will sometimes put it on and then she's like, all right, well, she takes it off and, goes off. And I'm like, oh God, I have two now. And I felt it even deeper. And I was like, oh my God, it's true. I do have to some point let them fly. I have to let them go. I have to hope that what I'm doing is good enough that they're going to be able to, you know, grow and just, yeah, that song, it kills. And I'm not saying you have to be a parent for it to make you feel things, because you don't. But for me, it hits in that sense, like in that aspect of things. That song is absolutely beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I mean,
Yeah.
I've listened to it in the English translation, which is also nice, but there's something about the Spanish version that's just so much. I can't even, it's
It
so
just
much more.
hits. It hits different.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot to it. I'm telling you, this movie is just, I forgot that I hadn't seen it in so long, and now that I watched it again, I'm like, wow, okay.
I
There's
think it
so many
definitely,
layers.
yeah, so many layers. And Heather, like you said, I think it definitely opened or set the bar and opened the door for more of these kinds of movies to come out so that people from any culture can kind of, children especially, like these are children's movies. They can point to it and be like, oh, I resonate with so and so, and maybe feel seen or validated in my experience. And then obviously us elder people watching, elder, not that we're old,
Older.
but we're adults now and we can see these movies through a different perspective. So for a kid, it might be like, oh, the music's really fun and I love all the different powers people have and that's cool. And then for us, we're like, oh my God, Abuela finally recognizes that she's the one that was hurting the family and she's apologizing. Oh my God, I wish that could happen for me. I think I'm scared and excited to see what else we get from Disney Pixar, if this is going to be a trend for future movies to come, which I would love. But yeah, we'll see.
Such a wonderful film.
Yes, it is so beautiful. And if you haven't seen it yet, feel free to go do that now, even though we just talked a lot about it. But we would like to hear your thoughts too. If you have a differing opinion or you want to explore something that maybe we didn't wrap up, feel free to email us at mhm.thepodcast@gmail.com or join our Patreon where we talk about these things in Discord. And I think that's it. Cindy, thank you so much for joining this episode today. It was so nice to meet you. It was so nice to have you on. Thank you for your time and energy. I know it's a little late where you are, but I'm so happy we were able to talk about it. And should we need to do a part 2, I am more than happy to talk more about Encanto.
This was so
Yeah.
wonderful. Thank you both so much for having me. Honestly, this was so great.
Yay. And if for anyone wondering, if you want to find Cindy and see her food and cosplay series, you can find her on Instagram at the Yummy Geek. Are there any other links that you'd like to share?
I guess I'm on TikTok. No, Instagram is where I do it. I still don't understand TikTok. So it just Instagram, the Yummy Geek. TikTok is the same thing, the Yummy Geek, but I am 99.99% on Instagram.
Same.
Which is where we met. So yeah. Thank you everyone so much for listening. We will see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Mental Health Multiverse podcast and for spending time with us, HB and LB. Special shout out to our musical composer, Little HB.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, feel free to share it with others, post about it on social media, leave a rating and review, or become an exclusive Patreon member to see bonus and additional content.
To stay up to date on all things MHM, you can follow us on Instagram at Heather Bodie and at littlebit_notbroken,
or subscribe to our YouTube channel to see our faces and watch some fun bloopers. You can find all of these links in the show notes.
Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.